We're gonna go ahead and get started. It's 5 o'clock, so we call this meeting to order. Ms. Foster, can we get a roll call, please?
A roll call?
Do we not do that?
We have not done.
We'll do-
Wrong meeting.
We're good. Almost all of us are here. All right, if you'll join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And next up is public comment. Do we have anyone sign up for public comment? Nope. Okay. Great. Next is reports. We'll start with Miss Jordan, Friends of the Pikes Peak Library Districts.
And Rita let me know that she was not able to attend today.
Perfect.
So she said if there were any questions that she'd be happy to answer them. I'll just need to send them to her.
Sounds good. Any questions from the board?
I just think that they're going great guns. And their luncheon for the authors was excellent. They had a great turnout.
All right, next is Mr. James, the foundation.
Hi, everyone. Questions about the report that's submitted? Anyone?
Scott, any questions?
No, I don't have.
I'm sorry. any-
Sorry, Lance, I'll work on that next time.
I just came back from the International Library Fundraisers Conference. Who knew, right? But there is a thing. And so summer has arrived in Austin, Texas. It was heat of 111. But just something I wanted to share that was interesting. So the group, well, the two groups who started Library Giving Day. So that is the Seattle Public Library Foundation and Carl Bloom, who is the agency that we work with to do a lot of direct mail that we do to appeal to the public for donations. Those two groups came together. They, leave fundraisers, come up with an excuse to ask somebody for money. That was the creation of Library Giving Day, contrived completely, but it's effective. And so they were reporting out on the results and notes. So this year in 2023, there were just shy of 100 library systems who participated in Library Giving Day nationwide. When they tallied all of the results, there were 12,171 gifts totaling $1.548 million raised through Library Giving Day efforts. And so the reason I'm sharing this with you is our share of that is 806 gifts and $68,068 to date, which just shows that this community supports their libraries. I mean, we reflect 6.5% of the total of nationwide. And if we have 100 libraries or so participating in Library Giving Day, then that means we should effectively be 1% of the total. And so we represent 6.5% of the gifts, and we represent 4.5% of the total giving. And I think that's a real credit to our community. And travel was not easy. I'll just put it that way. So I had lots of time in the airport to reflect on all of this. And it just really made me take a step back. I know that at times we may not think that that is the case. And it is. And the numbers prove that. So just wanted to share that with you. We continue to get Library Giving Day gifts in, and we continue to be generously supported by the patrons of the Pikes Peak District.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next is our financial report, Mr. Green.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making it.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's been deemed by.
You're welcome.
yeah. Yeah, I survived the hailstorm out of 21C.
Oh, yeah.
So as you can see on the PPLD as a whole, our revenues, I'm just gonna give you some percentages. We're currently at 5 months, 68.5% of our budget. And on our expenditures, we're at 33.9% of our budget. The beginning fund balance, I haven't adjusted that from our guest at the end of last year because I'm waiting for our financial audit to finish, and then I'll drop the real number in there. Pretty much all the revenue lines are tracking right where they should be. E-rate, actually, that is something that comes in towards the end of the year, so I'll adjust that budget out of there until the end of the year. So that one's not a real one, and then the other two are pretty small comparatively speaking. Interest income is still a huge surprise for this year. It's way over even what I would have guessed at a high side. The next page is general fund. And again, our revenues tracking should be about 68.5% roughly, 65%. It's a little less than the total. Expenditures are going to come in about the same also. Our intergovernmental and designated funds, designated fund, it's a timing issue, I believe, on that one, because we could spend on grants before we anticipated on a budget. We just have to spend it as we need it for the grant. And that's mostly what that designated fund line is. Intergovernmental is, we did some shifting of expenditures out of that from previous years. It had been in the millions. And so that's, we're still tracking on that to get that locked in. By department, the next section on the expenditures, everybody's tracking positive to their budget numbers at this point, except for Southeast region by less than a couple $1,000. So for all intents and purposes, that one's doing well also. Again, the interdepartmental and designated fund shows up the same as the previous page. But paper sticking together. The capital fund, we actually I'm showing we've only spent so far or even procured expenditure and procurement of $328,000. Part of that is Gary would and even IT would have had a slower start this year because they didn't have funds available until latter part of February. So we probably have some things sitting out there that are going to break loose here in the next couple of months. The lawn has effectively been killed at 21C, so that project is underway. So there'll be expenses coming through on that one. I did want to mention part of Gary's numbers in this on the remediation on East and Penrose and 21C. We actually are going to get close to $30,000 back on that because of our insurance claim and our deductible. So that was good news. I wasn't necessarily expecting that because of some of the higher limits I'd gotten originally from them, and then they came back and said, no, it's a lower deductible than we thought, and so we'll recover 30,000 of that. So this is the capital is just one of those that I think as we get into the summer and that'll start picking up and we'll start eating up more of the budget we've got out there. And the other thing I wanted to remind everybody of is this is a multi-year fund. So even though we've had things approved in any given budget year, because we have to do it that way, Gary will a lot of times have to plan ahead for things that he's anticipating going to get into, but he doesn't. So it ends up carrying over into the next year. So I anticipate some of this $4.6 million, we're gonna be asking again to roll it over like we have in previous years. Our self-insurance fund, we're tracking well on that. I'm not sure on the employee contributions yet, if that's really down 100,000 or we just got some timing issues because we're manually adjusting that now. Our system still hasn't been adjusted for this change that we did at the beginning of the year. So I'm still checking on that one. But other than that, the expenses, it's nice to say they're running below what we thought our budget would be. And preliminarily, the numbers, just speaking about that, the numbers from last year, even after we did the lag period, which is January to March, we look at incurred but not spent number. So even incorporating that into last year's numbers, we ended up coming in lower than what I anticipated we were going to, so that was good news. And because we ended last year with a lower than desired number, I thought for our reserve on that account, I'm gonna probably go ahead and leave that overage in the account just so we have, we don't run into a problem where we're having to do another move like we did last year. And as of right now, I don't have any more adjustments, so that page is unchanged from previous months, and that's about it. Anybody got questions?
So if you're clear. Thanks.
Thank you.
That looks good.
All right, next is the public services report. Tammy's not here. Do we have?
Yes, I will just, Tammy sent her regrets. Unfortunately, she cannot attend this meeting today, but do you have any questions from the report? If so, I'll do my best to answer those questions. But just one of the important things is, of course, summer adventure is going well. And we have a lot of participants already. Another good news is that adult education held their graduation. It was a very nice ceremony. And so far, we are very close to achieve the measurable skill gain to be in compliance with the grants that we have. So, and also I want to take this opportunity and thank Michael Doherty and Melody Alvarez to be acting Tammy while she was gone. They were very helpful, and I believe I spoke with them several times a day. So, and even though we missed Tammy, Michael and Melody did a great job. So, as we had some. As always, there is something exciting in the library world. So, but yeah.
Any questions about the public relations report? Right. Support services report. Those were all in your packet. Any questions about support services reports? Thought the music cards were cool.
Yeah.
So. All right, next is the facts and figures report. Was emailed out to everyone. It's in your packets. Any questions about it? You're my screen, you can answer questions if you have them.
I just think it was fabulous.
Yeah, it is. It's a good.
Yeah.
What I thought, I was gonna say, I really appreciated the overview that this gave, so I appreciate you getting it all together. I know that was a lot of work, but it was great information and really interesting to look through all of the data that was in there.
Yeah, very much a team effort on this as well. As you can see, it reflects the work that went on around the district. So
Yeah.
it touches every part of the district. So lots of folks submitted a lot of data to pull together. So all I basically had to do was make it look pretty. So
Well, you did a great job.
That's very pretty. Very
unless it's not pretty, then I blame Excel.
Well, Randy stuff looks pretty, so All right, got any more comments on that?
and move on to the chief librarian's report.
Okay, so as I let all of you know that it was in May when we implemented virtual suggestion box for our staff to have an opportunity to send their ideas, suggestions, how we can improve certain parts of the district, right? So, and so far since then, we received 10 submissions, and I'm going to give you examples how it was really helpful for us. So a staff member found a small discrepancy between our public safety policy, personnel and personnel policy manual about the age of unsupervised children, and we took care of it. And I want to thank Jeremiah and Heather, that staff member, when they responded back and said, it's fixed. Thank you so much for your suggestion. I'm like, wow, that was fast. So I think that's good. And also another comment that we received prompted us to improve the visibility and usability of our list of certified bilingual staff on our intranet. So there were some other great suggestions, and Jeremiah is doing a great job to identify those individuals who can take care of it. Of course, we also understand it's not realistic to implement every suggestion, but we make sure that we respond to our staff when they make those suggestions. So another thing was, and I did tell one of the librarians at Penrose Library that I'm going to mention it today. So when we started Summer Adventure, and I went to the Penrose Library, the children's area, they did such a beautiful job, like everyone in the library, the Penrose Library, because it impacted me personally. When I saw that display, it sent me back to my childhood, and I literally wanted to grab a book and just a campfire and read it. So it was so amazing. You go there and you see that and how also happy parents and kids are in that area. And also this week, when I arrived at work, I saw some families lost in the parking lot at Penrose Library. And I said, oh, they need some help. Something is going on here. And again, they were doing some activities at the Columbine at Penrose Library for families. And I believe about 3 or 4 families, when I helped them to find where they were supposed to go, I was very proud of myself. But then they even mentioned to me that it was very first time for them to actually come to the Penrose Library. And they were so pleased that we do so many different activities for families to help them. So those are some of the updates. And another one is that I did have a meeting with Jack Briggs to talk about the safety concerns that we face. And also I reached out to different library directors, particularly Denver Public Library, Michelle, since we do face very similar challenges when it comes to our size of the library and also the populations that we serve, and it was very helpful. Also had meetings with other community members and leaders discussing how we can work together as a community to address some of the safety concerns that we have and the staff. And so far, talking with them, with some of the elected officials and community leaders, they're willing to work with us and make sure that we actually work on that together. I spoke with the mayor, and I asked him to make sure that, because that's one of his initiatives as well, I believe that for PPLD, for me particularly, to be at the table to have discussions and how we can work together again. So I'm pleased to let you know that we do have very good community support, and finally that message that it is not just a library problem, it's a community problem. I think it's out there, and they're willing to work with us as much as they can. Any questions?
Board reports, internal affairs was the only one that met, so we're the only ones that you have. Listed on here.
Just me.
Just
Okay, so as far as internal affairs committee, we didn't have any major items. We just had some discussions. We had three different discussions. First was about a policy making procedure that we kind of don't have one in place right now for the board in general and how we're going to, I think, make a module, add a module to the retreat. That was right. That's what we decided, correct? It's what I have written down. So we'll have kind of a more of a broad discussion during the retreat. So don't anybody worry, we'll flesh that out a little more before the retreat comes. We also had Michael Branner join us, and we had a discussion around security and the policies there and what we can do to support their team better, and basically talked over some of the ongoing security issues that I know you all know that we're having. So no decisions from that or anything, just an open discussion. We also did talk about summer adventure prizes. That was also a discussion. We've had some complaints come up about I guess content of the prizes provided. And we talked about how we have a broad spectrum of prizes available, and how we did decide that instead of only offering a blank journal to I believe the teen, right, correct? It's only offered to the teen, that will next year offer that across the board. So
Actually, the journals are limited supply.
Oh, that's
have
right.
Some non-book thing that could still be used if there
Yeah.
are, just in case there are parents who don't
That's
like
true,
any of
right.
the book options that are provided, that there's still some prize available for those kids that come through.
But people have a choice.
yeah,
just
just
as long as people
essentially
have
the
a
whole
choice.
conversation was around choice of that there's a broad spectrum of prizes or prize books, lots of options for different groups, ages, whatever, and then there will be a non-book option if none of those books suit the parents.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
Great, thank you. Do you have any liaisons here?
Actually, Nancy and Jim just texted. Unfortunately, they're still in a different board meeting and she wasn't able to be here.
Gotcha.
So I just got this text. So and
right.
I don't know about the rest of them. She said they're still in a board meeting.
All right, no worries. Well, we appreciate them. Texting, let us know. They're trying to be here.
Yeah.
I know these days get long, so they put in a lot of work, and appreciate what they do for
I
us.
think today they had a utilities board.
Yeah,
meeting.
they're still, yeah.
So those are always
Could be fun.
exciting.
Good.
I was gonna say electric, but no.
Hey, that would be a pun on words.
Trustee comments? Any trustee comments?
I do.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Debbie. I just talked.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that this past week, I went out to visit High Prairie and Callahan on my adopted trustee program this year, and I had a great experience both days. Went one day to High Prairie, which was not a big stretch for me, which is a terrific, and then also not too far to Callahan either, but I was telling them how they're so close to my heart because there are home libraries. Liz Wilhoff was amazing. She walked me through everywhere, and when I was at High Prairie, Laura Foy really gave me the in-depth view on everything from the very back room where we keep all of the utility stuff, and walked me through all of the how all the water works and how we're conserving energy there. It was amazing. She knew everything, every little thing about it, and they did an amazing job. And then when I went up to Callahan, Liz and Tani were amazing. It's such a little small spot, but
Yeah.
it's so well done. They do such a nice little space for the kids, and they had just had a program come in, and it was just a nice 2 nights visits. And then tomorrow I'll do Palmer Lake and Monuments. So I'm looking forward to that. And got the dual locations for my for my
smart.
choices. Yeah, it'll be
Double the
cool.
fun.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I get to see a lot more than I had originally planned on, so it's great. Now you.
Well, I got to go to the circulation and shelving tour. And I gotta tell you guys, if you have not
Yeah, that's
gone
fun.
through that. And you have an open invitation. I promised Jenny I would say this, but Jenny and Melissa and Greg will show you everything. And I have to say, the number of people that make sure your book gets to where it's supposed to be is just phenomenal. And it's mind blowing to go through that whole thing and realize, it's not like books live at the library. I mean, they're always coming and going, and it's not just checking out, but new books are coming in and other stuff is going away. And the whole, how do you calculate how much shelving you need in a particular branch to hold all these books? I mean, I have a great deal of respect, and they have that tour open to any trustee at any time. So I encourage you to all go and be impressed, because it was really cool. And
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I haven't done it. I should be doing those things, but I've gone to some other things. I would say, I did
Give you a
attend
pass.
the literary awards, and there was a young woman that was an author that I believe could be almost a commercial for the library in the bookmobile. Her name is Barbara Nicholas, and she talked about how when she went she lived way out east of town here in Colorado Springs, El Paso County, and she would go to the bookmobile. And that's where she got so on fire with writing and reading. And I told Tiona afterwards, she's got to be on our commercial. She's got to be on the face of the bus.
It's only niece, you see it.
Okay, yes. I mean, and then last night I went to 21C because they unveiled the picture of Peggy Shivers as being a great donor and supporter of the library. That was a very nice little reception for her. I really enjoyed that. So, but I do need to go visit my site sometime soon.
So I'll add, on my vacation, we try to get out to local libraries where we are. And so I visited,
you're very dedicated.
well, we visited, I'm probably going to say this wrong because I'm not a native from Colorado, Ouray.
Hey, there's
There's a chance of me getting it right.
That's a
So
beautiful place.
we went there, which is an old schoolhouse that
Mhm.
was like the city owns it and they manage it, but the library got kicked out of the top floor. And now they're just in a small section, but it was really nice. And when we went to Durango, we saw the Durango Library, we went to Grand Junction Library, we went to another one up there, Ski Town, is it Vale? No. Can't remember. Aspen, thank you. We went to the Aspen Library as well. So Caleb loves to go to those, my son. He likes to go to those libraries. And so whenever we do, we take pictures of him in front of the library. So he's got a lot of them. So I just wanted to share that.
That's cool.
That's awesome. I feel like I need to do the same.
Do a tour, state tour.
I wanted to thank Dora for running the meeting in my absence last week. So thank you for that. You did a great job. I also want to apologize to Shirley. I was not able to make it last night because I didn't see the invite in my email until 8 o'clock last night. It was like, oh, missed that. So it just got lost in my email. I would have loved to go and see it, but I just hate that I missed it. Yeah, so
Amazing.
that was on.
And one thing that I do want to say is, I don't know if you guys, I mean, it's difficult for me to go from my daily Google website, Google stuff, and I have to remind myself, oh, I've got to check the library stuff. So the other day when I went in, Jeremiah is interviewing Tiona. And I even told her, I think she should make those public. Because, but she talks about her childhood and how she came here. So it's really interesting. And I think it's a good way for us to get to know a little bit about her. And it would be nice for our community as well. I don't know if they'll do it or not, but maybe we
We'll have
can.
to look at Denise again.
I see, it's Denise's work, but anyway, I found that really, she's quite a interesting woman that we have here, so. And I really enjoy learning about you. We don't realize how good we have it as Americans. So thank you.
Julie, did you want to follow that up?
What?
That's hard to follow.
Yeah. No, go ahead, go ahead.
I had visits last week with the Manitou and New Pass Library. Went and visited there and talked with staff. I also met with the all the main children's department people that were just amazing, and got to see the Darcy and all of that. So
I have a
And I
picture
also
of
met
you.
with- Oh,
They sent it to me.
dissecting now.
It'll be on Facebook.
Oh, there we go.
Denise.
Seconds.
Right,
And then I got to meet with the Young Adult Services team as well. So I appreciated meeting all the staff and seeing what they do. So
It's really cool.
That's great. All right. Next is our presentation from Manitou Springs with the Carnegie Library renovation. So Miss Howell and Mayor. Well, yes, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having us. Appreciate it.
Oh.
Thanks very much for having us. We greatly appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. And I'm the only, this is the place that has meant a lot to me in the course of my life. It's, I love it, frankly. I love it. I grew up in Manitou. I'm a native. 4 generations of my family have used this library, and I know many people who have over the course of their lifetime in the children's libraries. So the library, it's a beautiful, extraordinary building. It was a gift of Andrew Carnegie to the people of Manitou Springs in 1910. There were 1,500 people, so they said this is the size you'll build. It was designed by Thomas McLaurin, who's a famous Colorado Springs architect. Did some very prominent buildings, which are still here in some early part of our architectural legacy in the Pikes region. This is certainly one of ours. It's been a library, well, it's been a library continuously for 110 years. In March 2020, I got a call, Denise and I got a call from John Spears, who was the head of the library, chief librarian at that time, and said he'd gotten an ADA complaint. He was going to have to stop using that facility. So this begins the more recent saga of the library. We've come up with a design, and when I say we came up with a design, I mean we in a very large sense. It was very much community effort. We had a very strong group of volunteers who created basically they coalesced a task force. They did an RFP. They found an architect in Denver, racial architects who have quite a bit of experience in doing libraries. They liked what the architect was proposing. So we worked with the design, and in Manitou, nothing is simple. Okay. This was very much a community effort. The library task force, they told the community, we had community meetings, we got designs and so forth. And as we moved along, guess what? People decided they didn't quite like. They wanted something a little smaller, they wanted this, they wanted that. It was details, but they wanted the library. And so there was a certain element of delay. I think we spent probably close to another year going back and reworking it. But the net result was we have something that the community has bought into. Everybody's behind this. We're basically looking at not quite doubling the footprint of the library or increasing the space. It's a very, I think, interesting design, and Denise will get into that. So we're preserving most of the historic facade, but we'll be adding on a clever sort of a semi-subterranean use area while putting in a patio. So what we're doing, and this is the park is also a great part of the asset. I mean, tonight, for instance, we're scheduled to be a concert. You know, and next we got a concert. We launched that last week. That's a huge thing. With the patio, we'll have an ADA compliant outdoor venue, so people enjoy, or the ADA folks can enjoy the programs that are up there. There's a lot to be said for the design we got here. Again, residents were involved, the library task force, and we've got some of them here. They're probably one of the most steadfast and organized groups that I've ever worked with, certainly as volunteers. If you take money away from them, they work harder. We've had a very excellent working relationship with Pikes Library District. And initially, in fact, when John Spear called me, so we had our conference call, and he said, I've got to close the library down. We very quickly said, what can we do to keep the library open? And after a little bit, we said, it's not just about making it, putting an ADA ramp and a lift or taking our one state-of-the-art 1910, then state-of-the-art bathroom and turning it into, something more usable. But we really need to decrease the floor space, because by the time you make, put room in there for a wheelchair to get down, you're really diminishing the amount of usable floor space for your stacks. So out of that came the real genesis for coming up with a design that would serve our community for another 100 years. Very clever. And getting into history is important. It's historic preservation. We went through those hurdles, and went through the city council. I'm part of the culprit, one of the culprits here. We don't necessarily make it easy, but I think we were thorough, and we tried to be very supportive. City council has allocated $1.5 million towards the library, which for us is a lot of money. And it has really been a community effort. It's very much something the community wants. With that, I'm going to let the brain work fall to Denise. She can speak to the numbers and the data.
Thank you, Mayor. I never want to follow a mayor. I don't know how I did it, but I did. I'm Denise Helen. I'm the city administrator. So thank you for letting us come tonight. I do want to go. We have provided you tonight a packet, and I want to go through briefly what that is. And I noticed that some of you are already looking at a couple of things. We have a fundraising committee right now that has put together a wonderful brochure that really talks about the history and how we got here. So that's included in your packet. Then we have just a threefold that we're handing out to almost everybody that we can think of. Then you got the presentation, and then the GE Johnson, which was done in June. That's a preliminary cost, and you'll see we've added some money to that cost, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then the last thing is just an analysis of who give us a certain amount of money, what that would look like. And of course, the devil is always in the details of the negotiation of the lease and what we would look like from there. So that's the packet that you have been given. The other thing is I want to say, we're not a city that wants to kick you out like Ray did. We're a city that wants to welcome you, and we want you to be part of our community. We need you to be a part of our community to provide the services that you provide to so many. And the mayor has a great history where he would tutor kids, and that's part of what this library does. As you know, it's located right across the elementary school, and the elementary school has to use this library. They have a library that's basically a hallway. And this is going to be part of their library, and they have tutoring after hours. They've also said they're going to use it during the day. They're going to make this part of their programming as we move forward. So I want to talk a little bit about how we got to where we are. And the mayor mentioned it, but we brought in your group. We brought in your staff and said, what do you need? What do you need for this to be successful? What office space do you need? What restrooms do you need, and what programming do you need? And that's really how we got to where we are. That's how we got to the amount of square footage. I will tell you, there are people in the community that wanted it smaller. And I said in a public meeting, we can't make it smaller because the library needs this to do the programming to really meet the needs of our community. So that's how we got to where we are. The final exterior design, and you are the ones that put on the concert. It's the Pikes Peak Library District. And I don't know if you've been there on a Wednesday night, but I've been there where there is no room to sit, right? And they come, last week wasn't quite that busy, but I've been where you can't even find a place to sit. So imagine that, and then we're also gonna have a patio where somebody who maybe ADA it's hard to get to the lawn. They can sit up on the patio and enjoy that beautiful concert that you provide to the community. So this is the outside. We've really kept the integrity of the history. And that's important. We've kept the integrity of the historical portion of the library. And we've gone through the State Historical Society and our HPC Society to make sure that all of this is approved. Then the interior, and you have this, that, you know, there is so much here that we have done to help with the programming. And the other big thing that I think is important, we provided, one of the things that you requested was office space. And you have to, before there was really no office space, right? There wasn't any place to go, wasn't a place for the staff to be. We provided 2 office spaces. We've got a little break room, those type of things for your staff. And I can tell you appreciate the staff. I can hear the comments. Wow, what they do, right? What they do with the limited resources. And you appreciate that. I can hear it in everything you say. We're appreciating the staff also by providing this location and providing the office space and all that you have requested. Up on top is going to be a community room, and that's kind of where the library is now, if you see it. That's a room that's going to be able to be used after hours. So it's locked off and you'll be able to reserve it and do those type of things for the community. We have it downstairs, we have a kids room, we have a teen room, and we have the computer. So it really provides all the things that you have requested. Now to construction. And it's been a while, right? 2002 is when our grassroots efforts really started. And we're now in 2023 with the goal to break ground October of 2023. That's the goal. And we have a lot to do. And we know that there's some heavy lifting that has to happen. But we talk about how we got to where we are. Many of you have been involved with that. You've heard about it throughout the process. Right now, we have a final design. It's at the regional. I just spoke with regional today saying, where are we? How quickly do we think we can get it? We hope in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we'll have the final approval. It's going to be little tweaks. I don't think that there's going to be big things. Council has approved it. We have 1.5 million from council. So we're in that final little bit. And then once we get it from regional, we'll put it out for an RFP. So we know that it's out. Okay, this is the part that I want to talk about. You know, I've talked before, it's 3.6 to 3.7. I will tell you, and you will see that by GE Johnson, it says 3.6, right? A little bit over 3.6. So for transparency, we've shared everything. I did add a little bit more in contingency because I think it's better that we ask for a little bit more and hopefully come down. Then all of a sudden we ask for 3.6 and it goes up to 4.1. That's not where you ever want to be. We won't have a final cost until we put this out for our RFP. But I think 4.1 is doable. I think it's probably more than we need. I'm going to say that, but I don't know that for sure. We're remodeling our part of City Hall, a very small portion. And I will tell you 20% contingency in the remodel is difficult. A new build, 20% you can keep, but they said in a remodel, that's hard to stay with. Our procurement requires a 20% contingency. So that's where we are. And you'll see some of GE Johnson has a little bit of contingency, but it's not a full 20%. Now here's some good news. Alpamar, we received 200,000, which is great. We just got yesterday notice that we got 25,000. Oh, I have 30 here, but we got 25,000 from Gates. That was yesterday. We just got official Gates Family Foundation. So that's great news. We're on the July County Commissioners agenda for 300,000 for CDBG. And I want to talk about what that means. We met with one of the commissioners the other day last week. 300,000 for CDBG is almost unheard of. They don't give 300,000. But when we talked about this and the need, and because it was closed for ADA and it's in a low income, they said this is a priority that has to be given and we need to give it. So that is I have never seen a 300,000 CDBG. There might have been a couple, but they do not happen very often. So I want to share that. Boy, something happened, I apologize with this, so we have about 530, so we need 1.7 million more. That's a big lift, right? We have a committee that is working on this. We are doing everything that we can to bring money. We have some more foundations to go after. We have some additional funding opportunities that we're looking at, but we still have a heavy lift. And the goal is to break ground in October. The last I heard is it's going to take about 6 months to get it finished from the time we break ground. So we need to start October so we can be ready to open next year. Any questions on the financials? Okay, so we just, you know this, I don't need to share it. These are comparisons of leases that you pay, that the Pikes Community Foundation pays at this point. So you pass what you pay per square foot and all the way through. So that's just a comparison. With that, I do want to recognize we have some staff here and we have the committee that has worked on this tremendously. Michael's here. We have our fundraising committee. I just like for them to stand up because they deserve a lot of credit and for all of them to be recognized and for all that they've done. This has been, and Michael was part of it. You know, another thing I do want to mention, the State Historical Society, we just got declined for the 250,000, but they were working with someone to figure out why we got declined, and I think it's little things, but we're ready to resubmit again in October, and they said that we can go ahead and start and break ground and resubmit and then still get the funding. So we are not going to accept no, we're going to keep going until we get to a yes with them. And figure out how to get there. So we'll be working on that. And we'll be going. So questions, thoughts, the mayor and I, or anybody else is here for any questions you may have.
You want to talk about this sheet a little bit, just so everyone's.
Let's just go through this briefly. And, you know, one of the things that we've talked about is maybe the library could give a lump sum towards this, towards the capital, so that we could really get moving and get this built as soon as possible. So one of the things that we did is just a spreadsheet that would look like if you could give 500,000, 750, $1 million, up to 2 million, what would that look like? And then depending on the cost per square foot, what we would agree to, then what that would lead, and then we look at how we would sign a contract of some type that says, okay, for 6 years, you would not be charged for any rent. That would be this, the contract would go in that place, so that for 6 years you would be there, basically not having to worry about that in your financials. The other part is I heard tonight is capital expenses for C1, right? Lawn, all of those things. Of course, that you would not have to worry about. That would be our responsibility as a city to manage that.
So I'll say, this is getting probably a little bit into the other discussion, but this breakdown was something that I had asked for. I met with the mayor and Denise, a couple others. It was about 2 months ago. And we walked the property. They showed, and so it was nice for me because one, I hadn't been there before, but number two, to actually like taking the model, but seeing how it actually laid out, and that, you know, walking in the grass and saying it will be this big, and understanding kind of how that worked was really good for me, being able to visualize everything. And so, especially its proximity to the school and how, you know, that can be a huge community resource for the school. And so I asked for this breakdown because we have had conversations going back, gosh, almost 6 months, I'd say at this point, from when we first heard about this, so it's maybe more than that. And you know, we pitched a lot of ideas on ways that we can partner together to try to come up with this, how we can make this work, because this has been an ongoing project and there's been a lot of barriers and issues on our side, et cetera, to try to make this happen. And so I asked for this breakdown because this would be a capital expense for us. And so my thinking behind this and kind of what led us here was these would be capitalized expenses. And so we could pull from our reserve funding, do a one-time draw And this gets, like I said, a little bit into the conversation later, but that would reduce our annual expenses over the course of the lease, because we basically, the way that this breakdown works is we basically prepay for X number of years with this lump sum, and it saves the city a lot of money, because the other option is they were looking to take on debt to help cover this. If we're funding that side of the debt, then they don't have to go in to recoup those costs, and they don't need our assurances on the lease anymore, because we'll just run up the money for them initially. And so that was kind of a way that we could work together to try to help see what works on both sides of this. And that's kind of how this breakdown came about. Does that make sense?
I have a question for Randy.
Mhm.
How does doing something like this fit in with any table restrictions that we have about multi-year leases or any of that stuff? Do you know?
We probably would have to put the clause into it, but it would only be exercised if you guys chose to exercise it. So we have other buildings, obviously, that we have multi-year leases on, and that's how we address that, is with that non-appropriation clause.
Other questions for, oh, go ahead.
Can I just say, we can only do this as a partnership, and we've done that from the very beginning. We've brought you guys in, but we can only be successful if it's a true partnership as we move forward. And I think that's important for our community and for the whole west side. And this is going to be used by so many. And if you come to the library concerts, it's not just managed.
Yeah, I know.
It brings everybody, Old Colorado City, down to Colorado Springs. You pass everybody.
Other questions for our representatives there?
I'm just trying to make sure that I understand this. So the lump sum, depending upon what we choose, then it goes how many years that we would have.
That's the negotiation we'll need to make. If you decide that there's a certain amount you want to put towards this capital, then we'll need to go through negotiations, of course, and be approved by you and by our board. But it will go directly to the capital campaign so we can get this built.
Mike mentioned that, part of our strategy originally was that we would have to borrow money, and we were, one of the sources we used to pay that off was like rent from the library. We also have a tax, a small sales tax that we use for arts and cultural kinds of things. So the library gets some of that, so we're gonna use that to help pay off the loan. The thought, I guess, is if the library would be a partner, the library district would partner with us on this, then we're not paying interest, and we've got some legal, we've got more wiggle room on negotiating. So rather than us pay interest, we'd rather see the, the library do better than, let's say, a banker.
That's true. That's true.
So there's some wiggle room. I think there's some advantage to it.
And I must say, a loan is a little bit more challenging because you will have to put in a non-appropriation, which then we have to find a bank that's willing to take that, say we have a long-term lease. But there is this one aspect. So the loan does become a little bit more challenging if we have a lease. Where if we have this, it really helps us.
I think that obviously we want to work something out.
Right.
I think that we're all kind of in the same boat that we want to do something. I think that there are still some questions like I have about what's going to happen to the Mac Center. What are we going to do with that? We still have a lease there that we're still paying per month, or in a lump sum. I can't remember what it is, but is it a lease? And I know that this is probably going to take, I know you said 6 months, but with the weather here and it changes day to day, it seems it could be pushed out a little further, obviously. So there's rent there. So then what are we going to do with the Mac after we move back in? Do we keep it? Do we pay a certain amount? I don't know if we've had that discussion yet. And then right now, what can we really afford? I mean, we just went through a budget issue for this year, actually, And trying to figure out what things we could cut in order to get it into a positive budget for this year so that we're not in the hole and continuously dipping into our reserve funds. So I know I'm excited about this. It's taken a long time to get to this point, and I'm still wanting to do something about it. I just think that I know that it's on the agenda to approve something tonight, but I don't think that we're in that place where we can approve something at this point. We still need to have a discussion
So
about that.
we'll talk about that when that comes. This is really just the presentation at this point.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. This is something that I thought about. So the way we had talked about this was, I'm just using the top line here, the $500,000, $12 a square foot gives us 6.5 years rent free, right? So my question was, would we take the remainder of the term and then just break that cost down as an annual cost? So even in those first 6 years, we're paying rent, but it's just a smaller amount through the entire 15-year term instead of nothing in the first 6.5 years and then the 77,000 in the last 8.5 years. Does that make sense? Would something like that be?
Yeah, I think we consider it, either way. I mean, we want to work, it's just a partnership. Let's clearly from the get-go, the design, we're interested in what would make sense for the library district, because really we can't do a library without you. Okay. I think we'd entertain options, and we're kind of looking to you to figure out what works on your side of the table. I mean, and I can understand budgets, because that's one of the most vexing things that I deal with. There's never enough money.
Right.
Your wishes always and your needs exceed what you can do. But if you plan carefully and you think rationally, you can do it. So I think we brought our ears. If you've got ideas, we'd be happy to hear those. Denise?
I apologize because I didn't quite understand your question, but so it sounds like the mayor responded, which is great, but we want to build. That's our goal, is we want to break ground in October, and whenever you can help us do that would be really, and I think you want us to break ground in October. If you were at the Manitou Library, it's small and there's really no room to have programming, and you don't see teenagers there, and you don't see families there very often. You see a lot of great things. It does still allow us to have a library, but it doesn't provide what libraries want to provide. And we want to do that.
So, again, using that top example of the 500,000. What's the timing and how would that be structured? I mean, just one day we write a check for 500 or.
Well, I think that's part of what we need to talk about, right? If you say you want to give $1 million, right, then we're going to talk about how does that look, and that's part of the negotiations we'll have to go through, because we won't have to pay everything up front.
Right.
There is going to be a process to go through that. So I think that's part of the negotiations once you say you want to donate a certain.
Okay, thank you.
As I say, it's always in the details, but once we have an idea, then we can start talking.
If you can indulge me, there is one slide I'd like to go back that I forgot.
Sign you on.
Well, that's good. Actually, I think I can describe it anything for longer. And actually, this is kind of a personal observation, but I think it speaks to what the library is now, what it's been in the past, and what it can be in the future. And so when our library became part of PPLD, I was thrilled because I could go online and order my books, and I get the email and say, okay, run in, pick up your books, and this is what I want. Thanks. So this is what we showed in the footprint, or the plan, is the community room. And in fact, this has been the community's living room. This is exactly what it looks like today. So that's a faithful representation. But you know, for instance, when I was running to get my books, and I'd just be there a few minutes, I'd look around over here, you can't see because it's not a picture, but there was a sign that said maximum occupancy 19. And we were beyond that. I mean, I was just wondering, the fire warden's gonna come in here and shut us down. Because there were 4 computers here on this bank, and at least 3 of them were always occupied when I went in there, and I went different times, so it was pretty representative, I think, how the library is being used. Those 2 wingback, there's 2 wingback chairs, you only see one here, that was premium, somebody always be in one of those, I mean, both chairs be occupied, somebody reading the newspaper, and whoever got there first got those chairs. The tables, the elementary schools, just across the street, when school got out, if parents had, they'd send their kids there and say, we'll come pick you up at 4 or 5 or whenever they could get there, kids would be doing their homework. And I remember there was a lady there, she was always copying stuff out of I think it was a recipe book, so. And this was all one, and over here is the checkout bank, and we had 2 or 3 librarians, and guess who was talking to the library? The librarians, and they were saying, they'd say, oh, enjoy that book, this author has a new book coming out and so forth. So it was very friendly, I mean, it was a sense of community, and I thought, this is really turned in, not to a library, but it's the city's, it's the community's living room. People are there, they feel safe, they're reading. Kids are curious and their curiosity is being satisfied. Kids are learning to be critical thinkers. People are happy. They feel safe. The kids would come in there after school. They get tutored. My wife was one of the tutors. It was great. I mean, it did everything a library is supposed to do, at least a library that size. And it did more. It made people feel at home. It made them feel like learning and reading and being with other people is good. They became, I think, better people, better citizens. When they read and they learned. And now it's closed, but I'd like to get back. Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item is the consent. Any issues with the consent agenda? We'll move on to decision.
We have to vote on. Oh, we
It
don't.
was recently brought to my attention, so we will continue on.
Even better.
Decision 23-6-1, resolution to approve Manitou Springs Carnegie lease. Do we have a motion, and knowing that a motion does not just brings us open to discussion for the item, does not mean that you have any resolution on it. We can always postpone for now or two, but we can have a discussion.
What are we actually voting on?
So that's their motions left in your packet. You can fill in blanks if you would like. We can, so the formal way to do this is to have a motion before anything is discussed, and so we can just have a motion to approve the Manitou Springs Carnegie Library lease with more
Well, we can just
we don't have-
move to
how many
approve the
numbers?
resolution to the Manitou Springs Carnegie Library lease. And then we'll have discussion and then we can
amend.
whatever it is, or then continue by voting. Yay or nay. According to governance, that's what I've learned.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the resolution to approve Manitou Springs Carnegie Library lease.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, so now we can have discussion.
Discussion, yeah.
Mr. Taylor.
He's already.
Okay.
Your time.
Over here.
Yeah, I know. All right, so I actually would like to amend that. And I think that we should, because we obviously need more discussion about this whole thing. I still want to know what's going to happen with MAC. We have a good partnership with them right now. I don't know if that means that we would have to renegotiate our lease with them once we move into the Carnegie building or back into the Carnegie building. And because I don't want to cut off that from not only the citizens of the Manitou Springs, but others that have library cards that are able to use the facilities there. I also want to know what that's going to look like on the budget. So Randy's got a lot of stuff on to do. Yeah, and I want to see what we can actually afford. Because obviously, I'm excited about this whole thing. Like I said earlier, it's been a long time since we've been trying to do this, since John has been here and now Tiona's been here, and we're still trying to work through that. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's still gonna be a trek to get there.
So I respect that. Here's what I would say is we need to have those discussions, but if we keep saying we need to have that discussion, we won't get there. So this is the opportunity to have that discussion because that's around what happens with the lease. So not saying that we have to come to a solution today, but having the discussion. So at least we as a board can communicate that, and then the administrative team can go and do whatever legwork. They need to know what legwork needs to be done before we come back for the next board meeting to have a more informed discussion.
Okay, so is the actual I guess move or the amendment that I want to do is that we move forward with the lease. But we need to have those negotiations with the city of Manatee Springs as well as with certain leadership staff and the board for that matter. So is that something that we would look for? We would say, yes, we want to do a lease, but we don't know what that dollar figure is going to look like yet.
Should we do a work session just to go through like we do with the budget?
We can.
I
To
think that
just
would be,
hear all the different options and what the impact on the
I would agree. I
budget
think
would
that
be. I would appreciate having more real numbers before I vote on something. I'm kind of nervous about that.
Sure.
I mean, I love the idea. I think it's gonna be great. And I certainly want to do something. I would just like to feel more sure where I made a decision.
That's great. What kind of information would you like so that the other folks at this table can make sure that we're prepared for that work session?
Okay, off the top of my head, I'd like to know when the MAC lease
Leases
expires.
Yeah, I have that.
And what we're paying for that.
Mhm.
And have we had any discussions with them about different levels of continuing to participate and what that might look like cost wise? And then, yeah, I'd like to know both what you said, if we paid a little bit every year so that all of a sudden we don't have a $77,000
Right.
lease payment to make, just different ways that we could structure both the big down payment and then the lease itself, so that we have, we don't, I'll be on the board, but some people will still be on the board, to be able to say, oh, wow, we didn't see that one coming. I just really want to make sure that we have all those numbers nailed down as far as we can at the beginning.
Can I add to that? I would also like to see, I'm not sure that was in the packet, but the number of people that are actually using the MAC Center that are library patrons, not the subscription that they have set up, but I would like that. I don't know if that would come from Tammy.
So you want to see actually data?
I want to see, I want to see how many, not just go into the library to check out books, but going into the MAC Center and using the pottery stuff or the heavy machinery that's there to do woodwork and stuff, so forth. That's what I want to see.
And we do have that information, I believe, Michael. Yeah,
That
so.
information right now.
Okay,
So-
I work at the Manatee Arts Center. I'm the director of communications. Because of our partnership with PPLD, we're now the largest makerspace in the state. We have close to 1,000 members who are using those makerspaces.
and those are library patrons
Yeah,
and not
yeah,
just
we're
regular,
trying to get a membership.
okay.
We have over 14 makerspaces
In the 1,000, is that annually? Is that monthly?
monthly.
Monthly.
But you have a free membership with your library card. If you want a badge, you can pay $50
Okay.
to have.
So you do it after hours and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there a way that you can put that data or if it's readily
Yes,
available?
Yes,
on
actually,
other-
we also, the idea was also before to sit down with both executive directors and look at data.
Mhm.
So, and then the changes happen in the leadership, so that has not happened yet. But that's an idea that how much also brought like PPLD's partnership assisted also MAC. And that's, I think, it's overdue for us actually to sit down and have this conversation and look at all of that. So, and that will be one of the requests I'm hearing, the directive that we need to provide. So
Yeah.
we will be working on that as well.
So I guess I have a question for Manitou. In your drawings and your presentation, I didn't hear, I know you have a community room and gonna have better facilities, and I'm excited about that. But is there gonna be like a maker space in there or not?
No.
No, okay, so then that's why we still may need to be having collaborations. Possibly with the Maxim, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get rid of the relationship that we.
Oh,
already have
no,
with
I
the
think that's
Maxim.
great, but but if they had, but we don't want to duplicate efforts
Right.
either. If they're having a maker space and we,
That's true.
you know, we may not utilize the Max Center, but if they are not, we will.
And just,
Mhm.
I think when it comes to that, and we also need to be aware of what might happen in November election when it comes to tax reduction, that it's going to be on the ballot. We're not certain at this point. We have no idea how it's going to impact us. And when we have those conversations, and of course, that will be amazing if we could afford everything and continue every single partnership. But my recommendation would be for you, all of the trustees, to be also aware of that and have that approach to this project and also to our partnership. Because at this point, when Randy and I had conversations, of course, we tend to be more realistic. Sometimes it helps us, I think, if our prediction does not come true, but that would be my recommendation, to be thinking with that. We also have other facilities and other parts of El Paso County that we do not have any presence as well. So we need to be very strategic when it comes to that. So how we're going to approach that challenge as well. So we'll do our best on our side to put everything together, all that information. My other question will be, what is the timing? So, what would be your direction when you would like to have that work session, and also
Yeah,
for
so
us to have that?
how much time do you guys need to try to pull together the data?
Because we don't have anything else to do.
Yeah,
Well,
since
Totally
there's
different
not.
audit.
Yeah, while you're doing the audit and everything else.
While I was trying to think about, do we have anything with the foundation? Has this come up during the foundation, like possibly raising money for Manitou Springs or?
So, yes,
Okay,
and
We've had some conversations about it, but
the foundation's explicit purpose is to raise money for the library district. And so,
since it's Manitou won't sell us the building.
okay.
He's still there. He didn't throw rocks at you.
It's good to have all.
Yeah, those, we've explored some of those avenues.
I figured that.
So do you want your amendment?
We're trying, we're.
Okay.
Yeah. I could probably have something in a week that we could be talking about, maybe by the 2 weeks.
I mean, that's good, and I know we want to all of that, but for that information, I would ask for longer time.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. So
Thank
my
you.
only really the question is, if we could have this work session before the next board meeting so that we can move into the next board
Right.
meeting equipped and prepared, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I know we're over the summer, and so summer schedules get a little bit sporadic as far as who can attend and when they can attend. So knowing that we need to give a 2-week window here, what I'll say is it might be easier if we just have Laura reach out to everyone and see what your availability is between the 10th of July and the July board meeting. Up to and including maybe even meeting at like 2:30, 3 o'clock
On the day.
on the day of the board meeting that we.
That might even be better.
Well, the question is, can people leave work early enough to get there and have that discussion? And
Oh,
so,
that's true.
And also I'll be on vacation again, if it matters, from the 4th of July to the 17th.
I don't know if we really need you there, but.
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just Randy and Tammy.
No
Tammy
worries.
said she's taking
Yeah,
medication.
Tammy's sick, so you can assign her whatever she needs to be assigned at this point.
I could give my committee meeting spot.
I was just gonna say,
If
does
that-
anybody
Committee
have
meetings
any
are on the 4th of
committee?
July,
Are
so
we,
unless
that
we're
was
on
my
the 4th of
discussion,
July,
yeah.
Oh.
Are we gonna meet on the 4th of July?
Yeah,
We're
I'm planning
close.
on being there. Are you guys?
You guys
No.
coming to the monument parade? That's where I'm gonna be holding mine, so.
I'll be there with you, Aaron.
So we can reschedule those to the 11th, if that would be helpful. They are scheduled for the 11th.
Oh, I see that on.
Almost like Laura knew that no one was gonna want to show up. on the 4th.
Okay, so we could do it then, maybe.
We could, again,
tell you,
talk
that
to
won't be
Scott,
there, but-
because, those are windows that not everyone has blocked off for the entirety. And so I want to be respectful of,
Oh, exactly,
Sure.
yeah, sure.
so, I was mentioning Scott, would it be easier for you to attend earlier on the 11th?
Afternoons, I'm gonna have to say afternoons would be a lot better.
Well, the 11th would be an afternoon.
Yeah.
Would you be free that, or would you rather come early to the next board meeting? What was gonna be easier for your schedule? It's roughly the same
About you.
time period.
So the problem with it is for the governance committee, we haven't met for a couple of months now.
Sure.
And we're getting behind on some things. So I really need to have a governance meeting that day. So if we want to try to come in earlier on Tuesday. Trying to remember what my work schedule looks like. Again, early afternoon, 2 maybe. I
So if
don't
we
know.
did like a 2 to 4 work session and
Right.
then a 4 to 5 governance and keep that time
Correct,
slot,
that would work.
that would work. That work for others?
Does that work for your committee? Yeah.
Aaron,
Yeah,
Just know
I,
that Teona won't be there for that meeting on the 11th because she'll be out at that point.
I don't know
so-
if we have anything to discuss or.
as of this moment, I
They-
don't have, unless you know something, you were gonna be gone,
I know,
so.
but there was a policy from the nepotism policy.
Oh,
that
that's
was
right.
Coming to the internal affairs, even
That's
if
right.
I'm not there. I
Oh,
have
that's
amazing
right.
team members.
Yes, that's right.
Move it forward.
Yes, it's. Or it can wait until August, that's what would be,
That's really up to you. I know it was something that was kind of
I don't-
important.
Can either do it without you, yeah, like whatever the, yeah, or prefer to do.
Is that all that we are gonna have on that agenda item? Possibly?
Is it, and there's another management team is looking at the library card policy.
Okay, so there's 2 policies.
Two.
So we could do one, I could try to do one. On the 1 to 5,
On that day.
yeah, unless we could rearrange.
Well, I was gonna say, what if the internal affairs tried to meet?
We could meet
a little
earlier. Yeah,
And that way we could have the work session from 2 to 4 for you, so it buys you a little time,
That would be,
and then we can meet. 1:20, 1:30, whatever that looks like, based off of how many policies we're gonna need to review at that.
We could do an hour earlier.
yeah, that would be fine with me, if, as long as you can do it, Aaron.
Are you good?
Sounds like it. All right, so what we then need is to have a motion to postpone this agenda item to the next board meeting.
So, we didn't vote on the last one, right?
No, we didn't.
Okay, I'm still trying to
So
grab,
that motion's still the one that's on the table, and so this would defeat the
Okay.
previous one.
I move that, we postpone our vote for the resolution to approve Manitou Springs Carnegie Library lease to our next board meeting, which is August
July.
or July 19th,
Yes.
right? July 19th.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And that's gonna be it for now. All right. So next is the board will enter into executive session to discuss specialized details of security arrangements or investigations as authorized by CRS 24-6-42 or D.